I
All
have
right.
two things to say. First off, Kirk Hammett, one of the reasons I'm wearing this shirt, Kirk Hammett put on his Instagram today that this is one of his favorite horror movies. And
Wow.
that dude knows how much he loves horror movies. And you remember how we were talking, was it as recently as last week when when I was watching Walter Murch do Return to Oz, saying like this comes across as someone who kind of didn't know what the fuck he was doing.
Huh?
This guy who made this movie seems to know exactly what the fuck he was doing.
And I'd like to say right off the bat that
this self-assuredness to, even if it suffers from idiot plot like a lot, because I guess it's a horror movie and most of them have to, just there's so many setups, the way that it's like you think you know where it's going, and then suddenly we're over here doing something totally different because it's going to come like there's this.
I didn't want to
the first time and the second time.
I didn't want to say this before you guys watched it. Some of you may have already known this or
I've already seen it.
The writer-director of this movie is from that comedy troupe, The Whitest Kids You Know, the one that was popular in like the 2000s.
Yeah.
And they didn't get as big as, you know, some like The State or Kids in the Hall, obviously, but they were, you know, funny. But just the fact that this guy came out of that and like made this, I was like, what the fuck? Where was this guy? Anyway,
this shot here where she's in the room with the bed and
the creepy ass room.
There's that axis where like then over
the stained mattress. The stained mattress.
Oh, that scene where Justin Long sits on it. I'm like, don't sit on it.
I know.
There's so many things about this movie, again, outside of the idiot plot elements. There were so many things about this movie that I thought were surprising for a genre pick like this. Even just like when the movie is like almost at its most tense, we're going to cut and go to LA and suddenly we're going to go.
Oh, hold on. You're talking about this, and they realize this is Psycho.
Yeah, very much in its pattern.
Halfway through the film, you drop the main story and you go to it, and it's great because the Justin Long stuff is like, what is happening? Why do I care? Why are we?
Why do I give a fuck?
Why is he driving down the PCH and Point Doom?
Because it's Justin Long. I'll just watch him do anything.
And later on, it says, "Oh, I have some."
I think this movie has made me realize that I don't like Justin Long.
Oh no!
I thought he was better.
I think he's so good in this.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about Tusk. We're not going to talk about.
No,
Tusk.
we're not going to talk about Tusk.
I will. I'm still want to go stab Scott.
It is the walrus in the room.
Okay, good enough.
I mean, I like the other stuff. I think he was fine. You know, like he's playing. He's got the Burke role in this.
Yeah, but no, hold on.
He's a total douchebag in this. He's a fucking piece of shit.
The filmmaker does the Psycho thing twice. He does it first time. We switch out the film to go do Justin Long. The second time, you get a flashback.
Yeah.
They talk about the dude shopping and when stuff like that.
With all in wide angle.
All wide angle is all set in the set, and they think
the first
80s.
Yeah. This movie's kind of a head fake because you got the guy that plays Pennywise the clown. Dude,
it's a Skarsgård. It's big.
Yeah,
it's good little Billy.
Okay.
All right.
I want to say, like, I've mentioned this before, and I'm sure I'll mention it again at another time, but like one of Gene Siskel's lines that he used to use is, "This movie more interesting than a documentary of the actors having lunch." And like, I don't necessarily think that entirely applies to this, but Georgina Brown and Bill Skarsgård's character at the beginning of this movie, like, I would watch an entire movie of the two of them.
It was really good.
Dealing with this fucking shitty Airbnb situation. Like, I think that's actually the most interesting part of this movie.
It sucks you in. It sucks you in really well.
Yeah, and then as soon as he dies, I'm like, I don't care what happens anymore. Like, as soon as the monster shows up, I'm just like, eh.
Well, it does. I'll be
the words right out of my mouth, man.
I'll be the first to admit that it gets really dumb by the very end, but
it gets insanely dumb.
But here's the thing. But here's the thing. The Skarsgård, the way they treat Skarsgård character is so brilliant, because until he's actually getting his head, spoiler alert, slammed against the fucking wall, you don't know, is my point. You don't know if he is or you don't know if he's not.
And at that point,
that's awesome.
Caring.
That is not true.
At that point, I stopped.
John knew something.
Like,
here's what I knew for sure was when they were both in the living room and you saw a shadow move across the back wall in the hall. It was like, oh, it's not him. There's somebody else in the house. Okay, it's not him.
He could have
Then
been
the-
aligned with
Yeah, but yeah, he could have been aligned with those people.
Right.
He's saying, "Help me!" Those
Oh.
screams were so fucking scary, dude.
I just
I gotta get her into the basement.
this scene
Yeah.
here where she wakes up and the doors open and then she walks out into the living room and he's having the nightmare on the couch.
Right.
Yeah,
Right. That
And
was
it's like I was not startled by him waking up and screaming when she touched him. I wasn't startled by him walking into the, like that's another thing about this movie. Like I just don't think it used its jump scares well. But like
it tried.
I wanted to be interested in the relationship that these two people had.
Mhm.
And my entire time of watching that was like, well, one or both of them is going to die. Like, I
Right.
just,
Kind of what happened.
What I said was that this movie teased me twice into thinking it was going to be good. And the first time was the beginning when it was just them trying to figure out the Airbnb thing and her trying to feel out this weird guy. And is he just weird? And then they connected over the whole Detroit
like a documentary thing.
review
Yeah.
right.
documentary
it turns out
thing.
he's the guy from the art collective.
I
and
wanted
then-
that story. I'm
Right.
like, I hope there's no
Ah.
monster. This was like the beginning of what was the cannibal Western thing we saw?
Oh, a bone timer.
Bone Tomahawk.
He was with when they were still in the town and his wife hadn't been kidnapped yet, and it was just him and his wife kind of having a nice time. I was like, oh, this is nice. I hope this is what the movie is. And I knew it wasn't going to be that. This was the same feeling.
I love
I-
the change
horror
the
movies,
change
right?
of perspective in this film is interesting. It starts out with her going into this apartment, his house, and there's a guy there. And so
Yeah.
the whole thing is from her perspective, which is something that you don't see enough. Maybe, well, the Halloween had
Well,
stuff like this.
You only see it in horror movies.
You
You
only see it in
don't
horror-
see
Well,
it
the
in
thing about
normal movies,
her
which is a
perspective-
problem.
Yeah, it is a problem. Her perspective is like, I don't trust anything that's happening here. This is fucked up. Her
I-
guard is all
Well,
the way
part
up.
where she's
for
like
the first
part where
25 minutes
she's
of the
like, if
film.
I was in the house first
Yeah.
and you showed up and I said you could stay here, you would have just marched right in. And he's like, you
True.
did march right in. Like that's a really interesting
that is
dynamic
interesting.
that
It
those
is.
two characters.
and I love
Yeah,
his
but
whole.
but it gets dropped. But
And
it's
she's
like,
like,
again,
it was raining, and
best
he's like,
part
yeah,
of
I
the
know, but
movie.
still.
I love his whole
like-
like wine opening thing. Like you have to see me open it, and like
Oh,
that
yeah,
was
well,
all really
and-
good.
And
That was great. It was a trust
They
thing. It
sell
was
that
great.
really well with the
Yeah.
cup, with the tea bag in it.
And tell me, okay, but tell me this. Tell me you were not scared a little bit when he's doing the fucking duvet cover. I mean, that
I
was
never,
fucking.
I never
scary.
believed
That was
that
cool.
he was the,
That was
the
cool.
bad guy.
That was awesome.
I never
That was
believed he was
cool.
the bad guy.
Mm.
But that was fun. That was a fun
The
scene.
thing is, you didn't know,
Right.
as an audience member, you did not know if he was the bad guy or not.
I never
Still-
believed he was
And to
the
me,
bad guy.
that's the best part of the movie, because after that, it's once we saw the thing down in the tunnel, it was like,
Mother.
Once it's
Okay,
happened,
but dude, but
happened,
Justin
go,
Long,
hold
Justin
on.
Long getting forced to breastfeed.
What's happened? This is what's
That's-
happened.
Oh, that was
that's a different, whole different thing.
The thing is, once it went underground, it literally went underground. This film went to a
Wait,
really
I wanna-
weird place.
I want to hear what Chris has to say.
I think
Go ahead.
so. I'm looking at this grouping, and I think over here you've got me and Jared, who fucking live for these kinds of movies. All of us, we're the
Yeah,
ones
for sure.
takes this shit down.
Mhm.
I am judging this movie by the standards of the for bazillions of these movies that I continue to keep.
Yes,
watching,
exactly.
Right.
where it's like this is a classy grindhouse that tried to do some interesting things, picking up
and
sort of
failed at
like-
all of them.
I disagree
Yeah.
100%.
Pat and John are over here. Like, John, you don't even like at the end of the day, I don't even think you like these kinds of movies. So
I don't like
don't.
horror movies because
Don't
they're,
like horror movies.
and this is a perfect example of why.
fine. So
See,
it's
I
like-
think this was
I
inventive.
like
in-
two kinds of horror movies. I like A+ horror movies and I like F- horror movies.
Right.
And this was at best a C.
Oh,
No.
I think it's better.
You don't like this because it's a B plus and it's not quite an
But
A
I
plus.
I don't
or
even think
something.
it's a B plus. But again, like
I actually think this
I
is the
want- I want
best-
The Exorcist or I want Grizzly 2.
I
don't
think this
want
is
anything
the-
in between.
I no,
Yes.
I'm with Chris. I think that like this was my second favorite horror movie of last year,
Oh, that's
maybe
3 times
maybe
the-
my favorite actually. And I think that subversion is a big deal in horror, and when you can do that,
But I don't think it subverts
That's,
anything.
no,
it
what is this
absolutely
subverting?
does.
What
Whether you
is
like it or
subverting?
not, it's
What?
subverting conventions.
So,
Which
no,
conventions?
of the telling a linear
I guess
story.
you know what? Say this is a horror genre aficionado thing. It's like, oh, a
Yeah.
horror movie wouldn't cut to Justin Long driving down the highway and then
Oh,
take
but
us
never.
away from
no,
the
no,
action.
no, they do that all the
None of
time.
that.
They
But it's
actually
just a
do that
temptation
all
of
the
Hitchcock
time.
again. It's
You
like
would-
yeah,
yeah.
again.
But
You
okay,
have
but you have to
minutes
then
of
you have to admit though how clever or how well crafted the film is in terms of production, acting, lighting.
Wait, stop right there. Stop
Yeah,
right there.
I can appreciate all of those things and still think it sucks.
Hold on. The thing that made this film interesting for me was the fact that there were some scenes with Justin Long driving around LA, and there's lots of scenes in Los Angeles, but it was all filmed in Bulgaria. And none of
the outdoor scenes were filmed in California. The indoor scenes were filmed in Bulgaria.
Those houses in Detroit were built in Bulgaria. The tunnels were in Bulgaria. Because they can get cheap labor to make it. That's why the houses all look. Get that suburban picture back up, Chris.
Before I forget, by the way, I know this is
houses
important
look too small because they're just little set houses.
I know this is important to a lot of you, and specifically Tad.
The point I'm making is that weirdified the entire thing. Everything was off kilter because it was made in Eastern Europe.
It didn't look like Detroit.
Remember that movie you picked, John, about
the crocodile movie? What was that? Alligator.
No, Crawl.
It's like Crawl. Everything was off because Croatia, right?
I will say
Croatia for Florida.
Yeah, this movie
this
though.
Is Bulgaria for Detroit. It's really bizarre, man. But that made the film interesting looking. I think they made the film.
I liked it a lot, and I think that the music is exceptional. I think
the music
in this movie, the score is so good, and the sound design is so good.
We'll take nothing away.
What about the ending though? Was it labored? I thought it was labored.
Oh, the ending is stupid when
everything's
when she busts through after the homeless guy says, she never come over here, and then she busts through. I said, okay, that's the dumbest time, but.
Yeah, that was peak dumbness. That
was, but you still get this awesome. But see, Justin Long
has water tower at the end of that movie.
Just like Justin Long's character has so many chances to actually be a good dude, and he never takes one.
And that's the thing. It's like I'm rooting
when he tosses her off the top of that thing.
I'm rooting for mother to kill him at that point. And
come get your baby.
No in the movie.
That's why Tad doesn't like him anymore because he was such a dick in this film.
I really like. Again, I've seen.
But dude, when she's alive and he's like, I had to do something. You were slipping. He's like,
he's still trying to spin it after she's laying there half dead.
Sorry, Chris.
No, it's. I mean, I think about when the first Wes Craven did the first Scream movie, right? So it's like it's extremely meta,
so good,
extremely self but it's.
I like that comparison.
This movie has seen other movies. This movie has seen other horror movies.
Oh yeah,
but doesn't understand what's good about them.
This character,
I agree with that.
Extremely I'm not fucking going down there. I've seen a horror movie. I know what happens.
But she goes down there,
right? And
the film goes at the behest of him screaming, which is still too creepy.
The film I'm looking for, the term is
she should have just left.
Yeah,
and he was like, "I'll be back in 30 seconds." She should have been like, "No."
This film is chunky. It's just full of chunks of ideas. You know what I mean? You're like jerking along the film as it goes these ideas.
Right, it's a bone pile that you keep
digging
into and pulling.
I think when you watch a lot of horror movies, this was refreshing.
I agree with you,
though. It was not.
Aaron, I completely agree.
It was just but
when you eat a mile of dog shit, occasionally you're like, "Oh, that was a peanut.
I got a liver in there. That's pretty good."
I just
it's like when you eat saltines and you're like, "That was a Ritz." What's that joke?
Saying that there is
a Ritz cracker.
There is a boilerplate type of horror movie that this basically. You could put a framework on this, and we know exactly what's going to happen. I felt like the fact that they just went
also, I think this guy
subverting it a little bit enough to lift it way up here for me because I'm used to the bare minimum.
And I think that this guy is a pretty good visual storyteller.
Damning with praise.
No,
it's much better than all the other shitty horror movies.
Chris, you know what I like about Scream is that Scream never winks at the camera, despite the entire movie being a wink at the camera. It never actually winks at the camera in that movie. Like it knows what it is and it knows what it's doing, but it's always in that lane. This movie veers back and forth between being a parody of horror movies and being an actual horror movie, and it never actually picks a lane.
I don't
think this movie ever winks at the audience.
I think it absolutely was.
It is. It's a pastiche of much better movies in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
but watch
especially Psycho.
Yes, exactly. Psycho, but there's
Well,
also
that's
Psycho
a,
was an
that-
A+
but that's
horror
just
movie.
that's just a
there's
structural
also
thing. That has nothing to do
there's
with.
also Chainsaw Massacre in terms of like these
Yeah.
these degenerate descendants of people living in the house, and there's other stuff. going on
But this
there.
Or
this
the
has
Hills
this
Have Eyes.
this
Hills
movie
Have Eyes,
has
thank you.
this movie has imagery that I will never forget. This movie, this director is
I
a
won't
very
be-
good
Again, like the last movie,
visual
it's very
storyteller.
well
Like
made,
remember,
but that doesn't
like
carry me across the threshold.
for instance, though, how good he is at visual storytelling. Her car has a little thing hanging from the rear view
The
mirror.
snake that they keep it focusing on
Like,
for some reason.
And well, it's really cool when I think another car shows up or something, and you see that like out of focus, but you know exactly where you are, who like he
there's
keeps
good
giving
visual
you
geography. You're correct
yes,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah, and again, talking about spatial geography and establishing stuff, the way she set up the mirror to shine a light down the
That was clever.
tunnel,
Yeah,
and then we're established.
That was
you can
well
tell,
thought
you
out.
can tell how far she has walked down the tunnel because you can see how far away the mirror is. That's all good. That's good horror movie
Actually,
Yes.
of building suspense.
no, filmmaking in general, the geography of the film was very logical.
Yeah,
If you give
Yeah.
this guy a
Knew where you
really-
were. every
Except,
time.
there.
Well,
The
how
first
many-
time she walks out of the house in the daylight, when she's going to the interview,
and she sees how shitty the neighborhood actually is.
everything's out of focus.
I don't
Like
know.
it's just weirdly out
Because
of
they had to
focus
do that
until it
because
comes
it's
back
Bulgaria
around
and they
to
couldn't
her.
afford to
Here-
show like
here's-
real Detroit there.
I just thought of one
No, they
subversive
actually
moment
shot
though
it in
that
real
is
Detroit.
Well, not much.
But
Yes,
here-
the outdoors they did.
They did some B-roll out there. I'll give you that.
there's a
You can
moment.
hardly read where it says "death from below" on the other house. Like it's just weirdly out of focus. Like
Yeah.
it's
over processed, in other words.
When Justin Long's character is measuring his square footage.
Oh, good.
that was
I
so
did laugh.
hysterical.
What
was
you see, so this is what's lovely about that is we already know that there is absolute horror down there somewhere,
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
he's
no
going,
idea.
he's going,
well,
he's
there's like
going
the
just with,
tunnels. The tunnel's going to make this worth more. Like
yeah, he's just going with like
underground buildings.
he's just having a great. He's going, oh fuck yeah, and so
No,
you're
his
laughing, but you're
reaction-
scared, and you're like, you know,
reaction is
yeah,
like,
Yeah,
The
that
problem
was
is I
pretty
wasn't
good. Okay,
scared.
that was pretty good.
I wasn't.
That's why
scared.
Justin Long worked there, because he's this hapless kind of
No,
character.
but
idiot.
I
He's
love
an
that the
absolute
first thing out of
moron.
his mouth is, "What the fuck?"
yeah, yeah.
And then the those things, he gets the tape measure out.
Yeah. And when he's going, I mean, there's so many little like, oh fuck yeah, baby, yeah, and he's like, you know, extending the.
I did like Justin Long in this.
I thought
Yeah, I thought he's fantastic.
Did not.
That was the second time when he was in the car and it was turned into this other whole story. It was like, oh well, this is interesting. It was like anything but that lady down in the tunnel is more interesting than
Mother.
for me.
All right,
Oh,
well,
yeah, the mother.
Who is it? Who is a
I like it.
was a
like
dude.
It's
dude,
all-
a guy who got cast out of like I think
Yeah.
Detroit actually, and they
Yeah.
flew him across to Bulgaria and
Uh-huh.
apparently spent a shitload of time trying to figure out how all of the like wigs and fake tits and everything worked with.
Oh, that's a
him.
dude?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just stunt guy.
But the well, so you know, this is a whole. We haven't even touched on that. This is like, you know, the when they find the old guy and he's like pretty much on
I
his
don't want to
deathbed.
talk about
But
any of
it's just a-
any of how any of this happened
Because
It's
that's all. Well,
real
every
gross.
woman born it's incest. He's just
yeah,
having
it's
But
just
that old
That's-
guy was Justin Long with makeup on, right?
no.
What?
Are you sure? I think it was.
I'm looking at the no. I got the no. Richard. No, that was a different actor. Richard.
yeah,
Okay,
it was
no.
a different actor.
Right.
Damn, because I was thinking that would have been really cool. If that
No, they
That
did
would've
find a
been
guy who looked a
interesting.
lot like Justin Long.
Okay,
That
there it
was
is.
too interesting.
Because he had to kind of tie in because he got this property. He must be related to somebody in there, right?
No, I think he just bought it. He's an actor. He's got money. He just
Okay.
bought
Yeah,
it.
he's just a shithead.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
Well,
again,
anyway,
through the standard of the shit that I usually will watch happily, I thought this was pretty good.
okay.
No, I'll go further. This is even for, and I watch all the good shit. This is fucking awesome. I love this movie.
All right. Well, I watched it last year and it was actually pretty fun. It wasn't great, but it was pretty good. So I'm gonna give it one of these. Okay, there it is. All right, good enough.
John's fluctuating.
Bill,
Yeah, yeah. Justin Long with the tape measure is kind of funny. The first act is funny.
I